I know this video is kind of weird. I'm usually talking about some horror game I made, but I thought this was really interesting. There is a conspiracy out there that we need to talk about. And no, it has nothing to do with the conspiracy that I am deliberately delaying making a video about the Ice Tunnel game. I just made that conspiracy up. No fellas, we are going to talk about the rumor that Vedinad, the developer of the viral game Megabonk, is secretly Dani, the game dev YouTuber who disappeared. While most of you are probably sitting there stunned that I released 2 videos in 1 month, I bet I can convince you the theory is true. Daniel Suman, aka Dani, was a game developer YouTuber who exploded in popularity from around 2020 to 2023 with both his YouTube channel and his games. His most popular games being Muck, a multiplayer survival roguelike where you battle waves of monsters and collect power-ups and items, and Crab Game, a multiplayer party game that is humorously based off of the popular 2021 show Squid Game. The reason I say Dani was a game dev YouTuber is because not long after exploding in popularity, with his games reaching over millions of downloads and his videos getting several millions of views, Dani disappeared. This was almost 4 years ago now, and nobody has heard from Dani since. Why Dani disappeared is debated amongst his community. The reason that is currently regarded as most likely is that Dani became weary of the fame. Burnout and pressure from fans to release more videos along with his highly anticipated dream game, Carlson, became too much for him and he stepped away from his internet persona completely, without ever clearly telling anyone why or when or if he would ever return. Fast forward to December 29th, 2024, videos about development of a new indie roguelike survival game called Megabonk start getting posted on a new channel by a creator named Vedinad. These videos and shorts begin to blow up as Vedinad starts to gain popularity. Then in September 2025, Megabonk is released, and it almost instantly becomes a viral success, having reportedly sold 1 million copies in the first 2 weeks of release. It wasn't long before Dani fans began to see signs that I myself have seen, proving that Vedinad, the creator of Megabonk, is actually Dani in disguise. Looking at the similarities between Dani and Vedinad on YouTube, one of the first things that most people notice between the two channels is that Vedinad's videos are shockingly similar to Dani's video style. The thumbnails, the editing, the cadence, the humor, all the videos are eerily identical to videos made by Dani. The games are also strikingly similar, seeing identical patterns between Megabonk and Dani's Muck and Crab Game. There are also real-world similarities too. Although not much is known about Vedinad, we know that he is from Norway. Dani is also from Norway. There's also some discourse online that states that both Vedinad and Dani are colorblind. I don't think this is a reasonable connection, however, because I could not find any proof of Vedinad ever stating that he was colorblind. And the closest thing I could find that pointed to Dani being colorblind is this blue hat item that you can get from Dani's Crab Game. I mean, if this doesn't look blue to you, then maybe it's you who's colorblind. Maybe I missed something. If you have proof of either of them being colorblind, please let me know. Unfortunately, because Vedinad is so new as a channel and developer, we don't know much else about him that might connect or disconnect him with Dani besides them both being game developers and YouTubers. So let's move on to the content similarities where we can find a lot of evidence. Starting with the thumbnails on YouTube, right off you can see that both use an identical bright blue background with an identical yellow bulky font, with many of the thumbnails featuring a screenshot Twitter X-like comment. But it gets even crazier than that. Take a look at this. On all of the comment screenshots found on Dani's thumbnails, we can see these comments always have 7 replies and 4 likes. Now look at the comments on Vedinad's thumbnails. The same 7 replies and 4 likes. Both Dani's and Vedinad's videos focus more on the exciting additions to the game, with interesting mechanics, jokes, fun-looking assets, and funny bugs being the focus of the videos, while excluding or outright mocking the idea of discussing more detailed explanations of how they got mechanics to work via code.
For all my technical boys out there, here's how it's optimized. We use a centralized controller to tick every single enemy instead of using update in every unit.
I did run into an issue though, where if you destroy an object that you're holding, you get a lot of errors. Like, a lot of errors. So I just found the code that was telling me there was an error and
Dani was also known to take on challenges from his community when taunted in a comment, something that we see in Vedinad's videos as well.
Why you don't try make a VR game? Or you can't do that? So
add a banana boomerang. Okay, Donkey Kong. First we make the model in Blender.
There's also an argument to be made that both Dani and Vedinad extensively use what they call beans as a base mesh when prototyping a game.
Next up is the enemy, which is just a red bean.
Currently though, you're just a gray bean moving around.
Now to be clear, as a game developer myself, I can tell you that using this shape to represent characters in the beginning stages of game development is incredibly common. I do it too. Common to the point where it's actually uncommon to see a developer prototype with anything other than this mesh shape. The reason why this is significant in this case is that this shape is more commonly referred to as a capsule or a pill, and referring to it as a bean was always Dani's thing. Let's look at the game Megabonk in comparison to Dani's games now. Vedinad states many times claims himself that the game is heavily inspired by Vampire Survivors and Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 2 being a big inspiration for Dani when he made his game Muck. Megabonk also has an unlockable character that is dressed as one of the characters from the show Squid Game, which, as I explained earlier, was a main inspiration behind one of Dani's biggest titles, Crab Game. Besides both Megabonk and Muck being inspired by Risk of Rain 2, the connections between the two games only get thicker. For example, in the game Muck, you can activate stone pillars which summon a swarm of monsters to fight you, ultimately giving the player an item that boosts their stats. A similar mechanic is used in Megabonk, where if you stand next to a stone pillar for long enough and survive the swarm of enemies, you are rewarded with a stat boosting item. To be fair, however, a mechanic involving pillars can be seen in Risk of Rain 2, but not quite to the extent used in both Muck and Megabonk. There's also a similar whimsical sense of continuity that can be seen in both games, where things were added to the game more for the meme than for anything else. That is to say, the humor in the two games feels very similar. For example, in Dani's Muck, which takes place on a practically deserted island, you can find cartons of milk that increase your defense or peanut butter that improves your stamina. While in Vedinad's Megabonk, which takes place in a forest or a desert depending on the level, there are microwaves scattered around that will duplicate items for you. Fans of this Vedinad is Dani theory have pointed out that sound effects found in Megabonk are also found in Muck, and some of the player movement that is used in Megabonk is identical to player movement found in Dani's unreleased game, Carlson. Another big reason why this theory seems to hold weight is that Vedinad came out of nowhere and seemingly made an amazingly fun, viral, and highly successful game on his first try, along with a very entertaining and seemingly instantly successful YouTube channel. Making a successful YouTube channel is not easy to do, and it's even more difficult to make a viral and highly successful video game, especially on the first try. So it's reasonable to assume that this is not Vedinad's first rodeo. We already know Dani has the experience making viral games and videos, so the idea that Dani, with all his experience, came back for a fresh start and made a new channel and a new game that were both instantly successful does not seem too far-fetched. If you aren't convinced yet, then take a closer look at the name Vedinad. When spelled backwards, Vedinad is Danidev. Danidev is the exact handle used by Dani on Reddit, Twitter, X, and YouTube. But we're not finished yet. I told you at the beginning of the video that nobody has heard from Dani in 4 years, but that isn't completely true. Well, it has almost been 4 years since his last post on YouTube. On July 25th, 2025, a fan spontaneously asked Dani, "When are you coming back?" This kind of question was fairly common to see amongst the community, with nothing but internet silence from Dani in response. But this time, for the first time in a very long time, Dani replied. This was Dani's response. "Soon, when I finish the game I'm working on." Then, 2 months later, Megabonk was released. A small detail, but I wanted to point out that Dani's returning comment contained the Easter Island stonehead emoji, and stoneheads are commonly found in the various levels of Megabonk. I'm not sure how relevant this is, since stoneheads were a pretty popular meme and an often used emoji some years back, maintaining decent use to this day. So let's examine the potential sequence of this theory. Assuming that Dani detached himself from the internet due to pressure and burnout, it makes perfect sense that he would eventually want to continue doing what he enjoyed, which was making games and YouTube videos, but this time under the guise of a different account. Think about this. Dani was at the height of internet popularity, with millions of fans anticipating the release of his dream game, Carlson, but the pressure was too much, so he steps away from the internet, using the hiatus for his emotional and mental health and to work on Carlson. Maybe he always had the intention of returning to his channel, but imagine something went wrong with the development of Carlson. Either the development wasn't going the way he wanted it to, or over the course of years, the game had lost its appeal to him. Instead of Carlson, let's say he wanted to make a new game. Unfortunately, returning to the internet with a different game wasn't an option. At this point, speculation from the fans about his disappearance and anticipation for the game Carlson had grown even greater in Dani's absence, so he makes a different game, starts a new channel, under a new name with subtle clues guiding true fans to find him, while still remaining anonymous, then publishes the game he had actually been working on, Megabonk. I'm taking a lot of liberties with this series of events, but regardless if that is what actually happened or not, all the evidence we've discussed makes it reasonable to believe that Vedinad is secretly Dani. But there are quite a few points that I want to go over now that contradict the theory that Dani and Vedinad are the same person. To start, on Vedinad's channel description, he explicitly states that he takes a lot of inspiration from Dani, stating, "I'm hugely inspired by other creators on YouTube. Dani, RIP in peace, Dani my beloved, Blargus, Bargy, and more." This would explain all the similarities found in the videos and in the game Megabonk, and it explains why Vedinad chose the name Danidev backwards. Another point that disproves this theory is that Vedinad's voice in his videos, while having a slight Norwegian accent similar to Dani's, is not the same as Dani's voice. Fans of the theory have stated that that this could easily be done with AI or some sort of voice distortion. Personally, I don't think this is the case. Another point that needs to be considered is if Dani really is secretly re-emerging under the guise of Vedinad, why would he make it so obvious that there was a connection between the two accounts? Spelling a name backwards and matching the style in all the videos is akin to Clark Kent putting on glasses and assuming no one could tell he was still Superman. And to explain identical sounds and movement code being used in Megabonk, Muck, and Carlson, it's possible that the two creators both use the same asset packs, and the code for the player movement in Megabonk could have been copied from the Carlson code that Dani made publicly available. One last thing that I want to mention are the potential consequences of this theory. If Vedinad is Dani, then Dani has created yet another amazing game and amazing content. But if Vedinad is not Dani, this theory erroneously takes away Vedinad's accomplishments and gives it to Dani. Whoever Vedinad is has clearly made something great, and it should be celebrated as Vedinad's creations. The hype behind the game Megabonk and this theory might also be unintentionally building up more undesirable pressure for Dani upon his return, and whatever project he is planning on eventually releasing. While it is fun to speculate on these sorts of things, we need to approach this interesting conspiracy theory with all this in mind. So you tell me now, is Vedinad, the creator of Megabonk, secretly Dani? Personally, I don't think so. I think Dani is still working on a game, maybe Carlson, and I think Vedinad is a very big fan of Dani, to the point of emulating his style in almost every aspect. I think it's very unlikely that Vedinad is doing this with no experience, but if this is his first game, he really knows what he's doing, or he's incredibly lucky. Maybe both. If you thought this little video was interesting, subscribe. I usually make videos about the horror games that I make, and if that sounds interesting to you, you should go and check out my other videos. Thank you all for subscribing, and a huge thanks goes to my supporters on Patreon. Stefan, HMS Erebus, Pro Voice Actor 1, Figaro, Sly, Vervain, Betsy Urena, Jan, Jarrett, Mackenzie, Rosie Wings, Fireblade, Xbox, Rhythm Song, Luke, and Panchito. And to you who watched this far in the video, you know I love you. And I love you too, Dani, wherever you are.